Thank you very much to our newer members. I really do appreciate it. And if you get a chance and you want to sing with our choir, please see Reverend Ann afterwards. And she loves having new members. And so we do too. It's remarkable to do that. Well, today's speaker is somebody that Connie and I are paths. Every once in a while, she has spoken here before. And we so appreciate what she has to say. And now that she's written a book, wow.
Woohoo!
That's incredible. We really do appreciate that. And she's going to talk about self-compassion. And I think we've talked about that already today. Letting each person be their self and let them feel compassionate. And to be able to have you already joining in and shining. I know we're going to be singing Shining later, that's great, but this today is going to be about how you can take care of yourself and build that resilience that we all have, but we forget sometimes. And I think that's one of those things that we all need to remember. We're very resilient. We don't break very easily. We bend, we mold, and we change. And so I want to really recognize Connie for all the work she does and how good she is working with the community. Please welcome Reverend Connie Habash. And her family. You've got the podium all to yourself. Here you go.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and you have until 15 after 20 after you see the popping up.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I was going to ask. Thanks. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I've been crying. I'm so glad I didn't wear mascara. I want to acknowledge all the love and compassion that I feel here in this room. It's extraordinary. It's tremendous. And I'm really honored to be here with you today, and I feel like this service is really built up to this topic because we've been talking about compassion this whole time. And clearly we are a very compassionate community. All the service you've been doing for the people who are affected by the Gilroy incident, people in jail, people who've been suffering in many different ways, supporting our very own members and their challenges and what they've been going through. But we sometimes forget about ourselves. We forget to be there for ourselves and be compassionate towards ourselves. We might compare ourselves like, oh, well, they're going through something so much worse. Like my sadness shouldn't matter that much. I should get over it. My worry, my fear, my anxiety. I mean, how many of us felt anxiety after the Gilroy incident? And we weren't even there, but we might discount that a little bit. We might think, oh, well, I wasn't there. Right. I didn't get shot at. My family members weren't shot at. What right do I have to really feel this way? It's nothing compared to what they're feeling, and we kind of dismiss it or diminish it or feel like we have to stuff it or not acknowledge it or not think that it really counts because it isn't big enough. But the truth is that we're all worthy and deserving of that self-compassion, and it's necessary and important for our healing. But we weren't taught it, were we?
No.
We weren't taught how to be self-compassionate. Who had parents that taught us how to be self-compassionate? Anyone? No. In fact, what was it that our parents usually said to us if we were feeling sad and crying or angry or scared? What did they say?
There's nothing to be afraid of.
There's nothing to be afraid of. It's like totally discounted. What else?
You know,
Oh, it could be worse. Others have it worse. So buck up, right? Like deal with
That's
it.
not the family way.
That's not the family way. What's the family way? To just like
Stuff
suck up, right? Shut down. Don't deal with it. How about the old I'll give you something to cry about?
Oh my God!
Anyone hear that one? Oh my gosh. Luckily my parents didn't do that, but I know a lot of people who did.
Big boys
Right?
and big girls don't cry.
That's right. Big boys and big girls don't cry. How sad, huh? That a whole range of our human experience and emotions is discounted, shut down, judged. So then what do we do? We end up judging ourselves for having those feelings, right? And self-compassion is the shift out of that judgment, out of that self-criticism, out of that denial, out of that avoidance, out of that pushing and shutting it down. Because you know what happens when you take your emotions and you just deny them, shove them, judge them, what happens? Do they go away?
Dis-ease.
No, they don't. Dis-ease, right? We can have mental and emotional dis-ease. We can have physical dis-ease from ignoring, shoving them down, criticizing ourselves for having them. And they tend to grow and fester like an infection in a wound that hasn't been cleaned out. So it's so important that we practice something like self-compassion to help release and transform these emotions for many different reasons. So what do you imagine might be some of the benefits of doing that?
Freedom,
Freedom from
anxiety.
anxiety, exactly, that's what my book's about, right? Freedom from feeling the anxiety, because what tends to happen, even if it's anger or sadness that we're pushing down, when we repress that in ourselves, it tends to create some anxiety in us, because our body and our psyche know, I'm not dealing with this, and it's very hard to hold on to. It's very hard to just keep shoving it into the closet or into the trash can, and then pretty soon you're having to push on the closet and hold the door shut, and it's all spilling out, and it's taking all of your energy, your psychic, emotional, mental, spiritual energy, and even physical energy to kind of keep it under tabs, keep it hidden from other people and hidden from yourself. So we have that benefit of that freedom and of better health. There's a lot of physical, not to mention mental and emotional ailments, are related to us not feeling our emotions, not dealing with our emotions, not caring for ourselves when we're having fear, anger, anxiety. Anger is one, right, that we tend to just, especially on the spiritual path, we shouldn't be angry. No, we're beyond that. We are so enlightened and peaceful. I don't get angry, ever.
Those people scare me.
I know, they scare me too, right? You know, but these are part of our human experience. They're important. All of our emotions are here for a reason. They're in us for a reason, right? Anger gives us the energy to be able to respond to something that's not okay, right? If we didn't have the anger, we wouldn't probably have enough energy to go, I need to stop this. I need to take action. I need to speak my truth. And we don't want to do that from a place of reaction, but all of our human emotions are necessary and important. They all have a purpose. So with self-compassion, we can learn to be with ourselves, whatever arises, whatever comes up, and feel it. And I'm going to talk about the difference between feeling it and thinking it. And then listen to it. Listen to what its message is, what its purpose is, to guide us in our path, because it's here for a reason. So let's talk about what is compassion, first of all, before we get to self-compassion, so we can all be on the same page, at least with what I think of as compassion. And some of you have heard me talk about this before from the Yoga Sutras, the yoga philosophy behind a lot of what I teach. The word for compassion is Karuna, K-A-R-U-N-A. And it is, but one of the sutras that I think is the most powerful speaks about what to do to return to your inner calm, to your serenity of mind when you are met with situations in life. And it says in that sutra that when you meet someone who is suffering, you're supposed to respond with compassion. And the problem is that people read the sutras and they go, okay, I should respond to everyone else's suffering, and we think it doesn't apply to us. But it does, of course, apply to us. So I'm going to talk about some of Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith's ideas about what compassion is. And I've extrapolated a bit on that and added to that. And one of the first things that I think needs to be there in a practice of compassion is presence. This is the first of my 7 keys in my book to overcoming anxiety. And what is presence? Well, I see presence as awareness and attention in the moment as it is, i.e. without judgment, criticism, comparison, and expectations. In the moment as it is, with an open heart and a quiet mind. I know the quiet mind sounds really hard, but with a more quiet mind, with trying to let go of what I call storytelling mind, the Buddhists call monkey mind, right? That blah, blah, blah. It's always narrating our life. Like, oh, this is so terrible, horrible, and awful, and it's going to get worse, and oh my God, what if it did? And then that's where our minds can kind of go, right? They can follow this train of thought to make everything feel worse and worse and worse. Or it was like this before, and what if it happens again? And what if it happens to me? What if it happens to my kids and my family? So that's, monkey mind, exacerbating anxiety or sadness, loneliness. Oh, I feel so alone, and no one's here, and no one likes me. And, that train of thought, everyone been down that one before? So quiet mind, that we're not engaging with storytelling mind or the narration going on here that wants to tell these stories. And that's the difference between feeling anxiety or feeling an emotion and thinking an emotion. So a lot of us believe that we're feeling an emotion, but we're actually thinking it. So I'll often with a client, I'll ask, okay, so what are you feeling? They'll say, oh, well, I'm feeling really sad. Okay, so how does that feel in your body? Well, it feels like I'm just never going to be able to do what I need to do in my life, that I can't take care of things. I feel like I'm a failure. I feel like I'm not good enough. Do you see how those are thoughts? They're not actually emotions, and emotions are sensory based. Emotions are actually something we feel through our physical body. So what's something that you feel in your body, for example, when you're feeling scared?
Like you want to run.
Sorry. Tension. It might be tension.
Another run.
Yeah, you might feel like this desire to want to run.
Or
Knots in your stomach.
You might feel your heart beating really fast if it's upset in the stomach.
Can't breathe.
Can't breathe, right? Like especially if you're going into a panic attack.
Barfing.
Did I hear something else?
Yeah, barfing.
Barfing. Yeah, that's a physical sensation.
Got sick a little?
So those are physical sensations. That's the
Can't
physical
take her
manifestation of the emotion. But most of the time we mistake the thoughts for the emotion, and then we follow that train of thought, and that continues to perpetuate the emotion, and that's why we don't get resolution. That's why our emotions seem to be overwhelming when we're, feeling anger or fear, because we're rethinking them over and over and continuing them. When we can learn to feel them through our body, through the practice of presence, and through some other things that I'm going to get to here, that it will be able to move through like a wave on the ocean. Before I get to the other parts of compassion, I actually want to back up here a bit, because I want to talk about what compassion is not. Because we often mistake compassion for something like sympathy. Sympathy, according to Beckwith, is, I feel sorry for you. Sympathy is important. I mean, when we've gone through a loss, it feels good to receive sympathy of others. But it's not very empowering. After a while, we need something more than sympathy. We need to move past sympathy. Okay, so feeling sorry for someone isn't the same thing as compassion. Feeling sorry for ourselves is certainly not the same thing as compassion, right? We don't want to. We're worried that we're going to fall into a pity party, and we think that self-compassion means I'm going to just wallow. That's not what self-compassion is, right? It's also not empathy. Now, empathy is the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes, right? To feel what they're feeling. An important skill. We all need to have empathy to understand people of different races, nations, colors, religions, genders, ages, socioeconomic backgrounds, right? We need empathy. It's important. But it's different from compassion. With empathy, we could have a tendency to take on everyone else's feelings as our own and feel them through our own bodies, which can be overwhelming, right? It can be a lot. How many of you felt overwhelmed when Gilroy happened, right? Or El Paso, or all that, right? I mean, so there's a tendency to, through our empathy, of course we want to have empathy for what happened, but sometimes it can become too much, and we're taking in too much, and then we're processing all of those feelings we're imagining they're having through our body. And when we're doing that, we can't be very good at responding. First responders can't afford to do that. They would fall apart, yes. Can you imagine? And some of you are first responders and you've been in that situation. So compassion is a little bit different than those. So I mentioned presence is an essential component of compassion. Embodiment is an important component of compassion. And I talked about being able to feel in our body, to be able to be in our body. If we're not in our body, all right, if we're spacing out, if we are disconnected from our sensations and from feeling grounded and centered, we're not going to be able to be fully compassionate with someone else. We're going to lose our center. And it's hard to be compassionate toward ourselves if we're not embodied, if we're not in our bodies, feeling the sensations. We'll still stay up in our heads thinking them over and over. Open-heartedness, of course, is a component of compassion. And when we're really present, we are open-hearted. We're right here with someone else or with ourselves. Then being able to listen. So you know someone really has compassion for you when they're right there, attentive with you, listening. Doesn't that feel good? Without agenda, without expectation. They're just here for you. So when we can really listen to ourselves when we're feeling that, then we're going to be able to express and experience self-compassion. Listening to the part of ourselves that's hurting or afraid or angry. And what part is that in us? Is it a little 5-year-old child? Is it a teenager in us when we were really hurt by somebody? What is that part of ourselves? What do they want to say? And what do they need? So checking in and listening with ourselves is an important part of compassion and self-compassion. And then, of course, from that understanding, having a deeper understanding of where this emotion is emerging from and what it needs and what purpose is it serving in our life. Of course, coming from love, as we're feeling so palpably here in the room. Real compassion has that love and that caring. And turning that toward ourselves is going to make a big difference in being able to move through our emotion. And then the last component I see of self-compassion is being of service, right? When we're compassionately there for another, that in itself is a service. And then we can also look at, all right, is there a way that I can assist? Is there a way I can do something for this person? Being self-compassionate, we're looking at how can I take care of myself in this moment? What action do I need to take that will be helpful to me with this? So let's have a moment.
Can I ask one
Yes,
question?
yes.
How do you be self-compassionate without feeling selfish?
Well, isn't that what we typically do, is we think it's selfish to sit with and feel our emotions. So what you would probably do is then feel self-compassion for the part of you that feels selfish. Maybe the little girl or boy inside of you that was told, you're being selfish, for wanting that attention right now. I've got 4 other kids to take care of. How could you be so upset over breaking your toy when I've got to go and pay the bills for you guys, right? We were taught to not, that was being selfish and indulging in your emotions. But when we let ourselves feel our emotions, they will serve their purpose for us, and they will be able to move through. So let's see if we can have a little bit of time here to do a small self-compassion practice. I've got maybe 10 minutes. So let your eyes close. Sure. And I'd like for you to take a moment to notice any emotion that's present for you today. And in particular, those emotions that you might judge as not positive emotions, emotions that are painful or difficult to deal with. See if you can identify one that's present for you right now. And I'd like for you to notice the thoughts that come up around that. So that's your tendency to think that emotion rather than feel it. It's not bad that they come up. It's just probably not going to bring you to resolution. So honoring those thoughts, but letting them sit to the side and feeling in your body What are the sensations that you experience with this emotion? Do you feel it in your chest or in your belly, on your face, your jaw? Is there heat or cold associated with this emotion? And I'd like for you to take one hand on your heart, and the other hand perhaps on your belly if you wish. So you get the sense of touch. Touch can be very helpful in the practice of self-compassion. We know it's helpful for many of us when someone else puts their hand on our shoulder or holds our hand. And breathe into your hands there. And give yourself permission to simply feel this. And to say to yourself, I recognize I'm feeling this fear or this anger or this sadness or whatever it is right now. I honor this feeling. It's okay right now in this moment for me to feel this. And I give myself permission to feel this. And we recognize that this emotion, whatever it is that you're feeling, is part of the human experience. So in this moment, I know that there are millions, perhaps billions of other people around the planet that are feeling this very emotion. I'm not alone in this. And as I'm here feeling this and honoring this and acknowledging this, in some small way, I'm doing this in service to all others who suffer in this way. May we all be alleviated of this pain. That as I, in this moment, allow myself to feel and care for myself, that I extend that from my heart out to all others who are feeling this way as well. Try to breathe into those sensations. Try to stay with them when you want to push them away or run from them. See what it's like to really be there with yourself, with those feelings. You don't have to figure them out. If you listen, the message will show up. If it doesn't, you don't need to know. It will show up in your life. And you're welcome to lower your hands down if you wish, or keep them there if you wish. And just notice what you feel in your body right now. There's no judgment on it. It might be better, it might be the same, it might be more intense. But if you stay with this practice long enough, we're doing it for a very short period of time today, you'll find that you can get through, you can move through with the emotion to the other side of it. That there is a place of clarity and peace and truth and more ease that can emerge on the other side of that. When we consciously, intentionally work with our emotions in this way, that can reveal. So you can go ahead and turn on the lights now. And does anyone have something you want to share from that experience or a question? Yes.
Actually, I was surprised because I felt sadness, but I felt it in my throat area.
Yes.
You might wanna
So you
repeat what she said.
she said that she felt sadness, but she felt it in her throat area. And was it a choking up feeling or a tight feeling, or how would you describe that?
It was a feeling of I wanted to cry.
Yes. So I find my experience is that's very common, that a lot of times sadness, but other emotions can too, but especially sadness can show up here because we're holding back tears or holding back emotion. And this is the area, for those of you who know the 7 chakras, the 5th chakra, this is the area of expression, of communication, and also of listening. So a lot of times things that we're not listening to in ourselves, and we're not expressing, will get bottled up here and choked up here. And sadness especially, because the tears, a lot of times you feel choked up when tears are coming. Yeah, so a lot of times it starts here. Who else? Anyone else? Yes, back there.
When I heard that today's topic was about self-compassion, I realized that I have no problem feeling compassion for others, and I have difficulty feeling self-compassion. And I don't even have problems feeling compassion for my exes when they are going through difficult times. And I'm trying to figure out why I struggle with self-compassion sometimes. And so I was trying to, when you were guiding us through that, and I still don't know, but I'm just kind of sitting with it. So
How many of us have a difficulty with self-compassion, but we have no problem being compassionate for other people? You know, it's very, very common, especially in spiritual communities. We're so focused on doing service out there, which is important, right? But we must not neglect ourselves. And again, you know, a lot of times it's our early life. We were told our feelings didn't matter, that we didn't matter, that we weren't worthy, that we weren't good enough. And self-compassion is part of this practice to love ourselves in a whole new way, to be able to heal those old wounds within us. So it might take some time, you know, and so if you have a hard time being compassionate for, say, if you're feeling scared, you can be compassionate for the part of yourself that doesn't know how to feel self-compassion, or that doesn't feel that I'm worthy, everyone else is worthy of compassion, but not me. And that's a place to start. Yes?
You can kind of liken it to the stewardess instructions to put the oxygen mask
Yeah.
on the person next to you before you do yourself.
Exactly.
Because you can't really take care of someone else.
That's absolutely right. So we put the oxygen mask on ourselves, so then we can take care of the person next to us and help
Right.
them,
Right.
right? If we aren't taking care of ourselves and healing our own pain and suffering, we will get easily depleted and then not really be of service in the way we want to in the world. So it's really a very important part of our self-care as caregivers, as people in service to the world, as ministers, to have that compassion and self-care and self-love for ourselves. I guess that's redundant, but yeah. Anyone else? So this is part of what's going to build your true resilience, is being able to be there for yourself and feel what you feel and move through that. Yes, it's great to get support from other people, but ultimately, we're always with us, right? We're on this journey.
Wherever we go, there we are.
Exactly. Wherever we go, there we are. Yes. How empowering that is to know that we can have our backs, that we have that inner strength and resilience to be able to be here with ourselves through whatever we're going through. That's true resilience. And I know that we, you know, I was so grateful for Reverend Dr. Eileen to remind us of how lovely the boring times are. You know, that's the peace, when we have peace and everything. But there's going to be challenging times ahead. That's part of life. We have 2020 coming. We know there's going to be some interesting challenges next year. But we can sustain ourselves and have the resilience to get through whatever that brings by this practice of self-compassion. So I hope that you play with it, work with it. Reach out to me if you want some support or guidance or you have questions about it. And many blessings.
Thank you.
Na, 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 na.